Hello and welcome, my friends, to live coverage of GP Rotterdam. The format is team limited. We've made our way through 14 rounds of Swiss paired sealed. And all now it comes down to the semi-final. The two teams that we're going to be looking at on your screen, the two teams that we'll be checking in with a bit later on behind you. The hand on the tiller here, ladies and gentlemen, it's Simon Gertzen with occasional nonsense spouting out of my mouth, Riley Knight as well. It's great to have you on board here as we get underway with our first semi-final. We followed these two men in the draft, Simon Gertzen, Rafael Levy, Javier Dominguez. How are things going to shake out here? Both of these players, of course, as we saw in the draft, fighting over the red cards.
Yes, but apparently the only red players, or at least the only two players that really wanted red cards. And yeah, they were fighting despite being on opposite ends of the spectrum.
Javier Dominguez settled on black as his secondary colour, whereas Rafael Levy managed to shore up the white cards. He did pretty well to get into that position earlier on than his opponent, for sure, as we see Inventor's Apprentice come across for two. The old Nerd Ape getting in for some early damage. Rafael Levy has played a servo exhibition, doing a bit of an impression of a raise the alarm there.
And Javier is taking the initiative away from Raf very early on. Despite being on the draw, he has the much more powerful start.
Yeah, playing a 2-2 after your opponent plays two 1-1s is something of a tricky proposition. But look at this, Rafael Levy fearlessly entering the red zone with his two 1-1s, and you'll be very suspicious to make some blocks here. Going to hold Levy to account if he blocks with the eager construct. What's Levy got? Any number of combat tricks available to the Frenchman at this point. Built to last, built to smash. Could be either one of those right now. Those servos just built to do 2 damage, however.
Of
and
course,
we'll see what the follow-up play is.
Getting rid of the construct would have also had the added advantage of shrinking the apprentice.
Trusty Companion comes down, a 3-2 Vigilance. Can't attack by itself. That's not going to be a drawback with Levy's board at this stage.
And Javier has to assume that it was one of the one-mana combat tricks that white and red have available to them, because otherwise Raf would have really slowed down his curve for very little reason.
In for 4 now. Javier Dominguez slaps these cards onto the table as they come across to deliver Rafael Levy a bit of a beating here. The French national champion, of course, ready to stake his claim here to try to get into the finals of this event. Not just the national champion of Magic, I might add, also the French national champion of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Rafael Levy with a long and illustrious career, not just in Magic, but in many forms of martial arts. And as a man who has personally actually wrestled him, I wouldn't recommend it.
Experience in beating people up.
Yeah, with both cards and his flying fists.
So actually an interesting spot here. Do you block with your trusty companion, given that it has vigilance and is very likely to be able to attack here next turn, and then you could still block and ultimately deal a bit more damage, but of course you are potentially falling behind. Combat tricks, once again, the key difference maker here. Built to smash on the offensive side, on the aggressive side, but for example, even Raf could be holding a combat trick here to maybe save his creature.
We see the Trusty Companion. It looks like it's edging its way towards the Nerd Ape here, the Inventor's Apprentice. And it looks like Dominguez has the response in Built to Smash. Levy not in no interest in contesting that one there. Comments that Matej Zadelkai made during these two drafts here were that Dominguez had the higher card quality, but Levy had the higher deck synergy. So it'll be interesting to see how these cards shake out with each other. Dominguez picking up a number of the really sought-after 2-drops there.
Yeah, you can basically tell from the board already. Javier with 3 really solid plays. Eager Construct, of course, not being tremendous, but it fit into the curve. It's an artifact for Build to Smash. So he has shown that his deck is certainly not bad. There are no bad cards so far, and now it's on Raf's side to get something going here. Maybe the token theme.
4 mana now. Could be a Propeller Pioneer here, taking to the skies. Nice way to push through some damage. And what are we going to see? A servo come down, so a 2-1 and a little friend brought along as well. Rafael Levy, a strong turn 4 play here for him.
Yeah, Raf will need as many ways as possible to make sure that his servos can continue to connect. And one of these puzzle pieces is in his hand already, he has the ability to use Fireforger's Puzzle Knot to attack into a higher toughness creature and then ping it after combat.
Yeah, and you see the utility of this. Often Malign card really raise when you've got low toughness creatures on the other side of the battlefield, or low toughness creatures that are blocking to within an inch of their lives.
I'm actually a fan of it. I understand that it often doesn't make the cut, but in other scenarios you use it as a 5 mana kill 2 creature spell. So it's a card that shouldn't be underestimated.
Levy is going to line up some blocks here with that Propeller Pioneer, trading off against the Eager Construct, and that's going to shrink the Inventor's Apprentice as well. No follow-up play for Dominguez to grow the Inventor's Apprentice, and he has not been spending his mana efficiently, Zimon.
Exactly. He used Build to Smash last turn and couldn't use the 2 mana that he left open. Now he has the 2-drop, which also shows that he most likely just drew it. And yeah, in this kind of mirror match, not spending your mana efficiently is
look
a
at
big
that.
downside.
Javier Dominguez spewing his guts up after he loses thriving grubs to the Puzzle Knot here. What a disgusting event that is for him there. He won't be happy with that. And Levy really leveraging some high value out of his cards. And a Veteran Motorist is a nice follow-up.
Yeah. Fireforger's Puzzle Knot would also be good on Javier Dominguez's side of the battlefield.
Yeah, you'd think so, absolutely. A way to clear out some of those pesky 1/1s, especially now that the Motorist has come down as a 3/1.
Levy sees a mountain on top of his library, which will probably not make the cut. I don't expect him to be really looking for more lands.
Gearshift Ace, on the other hand, might be something that Levy really wants to sniff out here.
But that's a more difficult decision. Do you really want a 2/1 first striker when your opponent might start dropping 5 drops?
If we see something like a Wayward Giant come down or its equivalent, then a 2/1 first strike looking pretty embarrassing. However, you chuck one Renegade Freighter in the mix and you're off to the races.
Or you combine it with your burn spells or your Puzzle Knot to actually take down a 3 toughness creature.
We'll see what Dominguez has here. He's not short of lands. He's got to have a play of some kind here. 3 mana. And it's Brazen Scourge, a very strong 3-drop here. And with what appeared to be a big flourish, but ended up being a little bit of a whimper, the Brazen Scourge slams in. Levy takes 3, down to 11 here. This race pretty evenly matched, but Levy with the board advantage at this stage. Dominguez shuffling around the cards in his hands. Zimon, you may have spotted one of them.
Let's see what develops here. I'm not sure enough yet, but
fearlessly attacking once again Raphael Levy, in for 6. And we're going to see a block with the Inventor's Apprentice. Seems like a block that makes a lot of sense here. Yeah, block the 3/1 with the 1/3. And look at this, Inspired Charge to take things to the next level. All these servos all of a sudden coming across for 9 damage. That's going to save the Veteran Motorist as well. Dominguez down to 4.
Huge turn.
Yeah, really, really big turn for Raphael Levy. We saw him pick up an Inspired Charge or 2 in the draft, and he's put that one to great use, slamming the Combustible Gearhulk down like that. How do you like them apples, he says to Raphael Levy. We'll see what Levy says here. Either draw 3 for Dominguez or flip a couple of cards and see if they can ding you. Let's have a look at what we get.
Javier's done a virtual 1. He is down to 1 on this board already.
Raphael Levy with the choice here. So, of course, Combustible Gearhulk, apart from being a 6-mana 6/6 first strike, when it comes down, you can either choose, your opponent can choose to either give you 3 cards off the top of your deck, or you mill 3 and ding them for the total converted mana cost. Could be 0, could be 13. We'll see. Could be any number in between. Could a range of numbers it could be, Zimon Gertzen, if we're going to be honest.
I would give my opponent 3 cards in this spot. You're not winning because of card advantage. You're winning because of your burn. Well, your reach. You need to utilize your attackers, your Fire Forger's Puzzle Knot, return it with Aviary Mechanic, shoot another damage. If you let the Gearhulk damage you here, I think you're just more likely to lose the game.
Dominguez is tapped out. He's essentially F6, and that is what we see here. This browbeat effect does net Dominguez 3 cards. This says to me that Levy really wants to put this game away as quick as he can. And even with in the power of a huge mythic like this, Servo Exhibition could run Dominguez over. Levy thinks about it. We saw a little fumble with the creatures, and in they come once again, immediately slamming the blocks in.
Yep. Take you down to 2.
Five Forges Puzzle Knot, of course, offering another 1 damage. We're going to see Aviary Mechanic returning the Puzzle Knot and playing now a Spireside Infiltrator.
Yeah, that's actually perfect because it gives you the 2 extra damage, but you're still holding it in hand. And the Spireside Infiltrator is a blocker that makes it almost impossible for Javier to kill you this turn, and also threatens another point of damage should something go terribly wrong.
So 11 life, the task here with the Puzzle Knot in hand for Rafael Levy. Dominguez has exactly this turn to find his way out of this.
Dominguez might be holding an unlicensed disintegration, which is a huge step towards actually winning this game.
Levy making his game plan very clear. I will block your creatures, I will play this Puzzle Knot, and I will end you, sir.
The problem is, even if you unlicense disintegration one of the creatures, there's only 6 damage coming through, or 9 if Levy blocks the wrong one, but it's not enough.
Dominguez desperately searching for a way out here, but Levy has made it very clear, and that is it. Dominguez packs up the cards. The Hall of Famer Rafael Levy slamming his seal of authority on the first game of this match, and well done indeed to the French Hall of Famer, because he has put himself 1 game up against his opponent, and it's very important he's done that, of course, because Luis Salvato has beaten Jeremy Danani, the Pro Tour winner, as well here. So these teams 1 and 1. Now, Zeman, of course, it's best of 3. Both from a game perspective and also in the match. As soon as we have 2 players on a team winning 2 games, it's all over Red Rover, so things evenly poised here. As we check in now with Tomoharu Sito and Marcio Carvalho here. Tomoharu Sito, of course, well known throughout the world as being a stone-cold master of the game. Carvalho known for slightly different things. Draft master at the World Championship most recently here.
Yeah, and this is pure magic, as you can see. Mostly lands, non-creature artifacts, and a few win conditions.
Carvalho in for 3 now. Sito can smell blood in the water. He is 1 hit away with this from this with this Gear Seeker Serpent.
Yeah, if Carvalho doesn't have a way to gain life here, the Serpent should deal the final blow.
Syndicate Trafficker now the play for Carvalho. Does he have a follow-up? 2 cards in hand. Sito, cool as a cucumber, you can see him there. Splashing green as well. Curious to see what comes out of it here.
Oh, that's an interesting play. Why would you sacrifice the artifact there? Is it a way to deal with the Serpent, maybe?
So Syndicate Trafficker, 1 mana, sacrifice an artifact, put a +1/+1 counter on it, and it gains indestructible until end of turn. So if this ability resolves, it becomes a 4/2. What are the reasons for doing that, Zeman?
I was thinking Hunt the Weak, but it's not actually enough to kill the Gear Seeker. So you would need a combination of cards to actually take it down here. 4, 5, 6. That's it. Ornamental Courage, 5 power.
And now here we see the Hunt the Weak to kill the Gear Seeker Serpent. So that was something like a 3-for-1 here.
But does this resolve? Or does Sito have something? He still has the Puzzle Knot in play. He has a full hand. Wow.
He's got a million cards in hand.
Ooh.
And oh, look at that for the absolute blowout. And Marcio Carvalho picks up his cards. He can't beat that Ether Trade wins there. The winds of change blow through the tournament center and take Tomoharu Sito with his sails full to victory 1-0 against the Portuguese.
I'm already in love with Sito's deck.
Oh, absolutely. We only saw it for just a fraction of a second there, but it looked like an absolute masterpiece. No surprises there, Simon Gertzen from the Japanese master. And now it's over to Luis Salvato and Jeremy Danani. Salvato up 1 game against the Frenchman here. And we see this board looks pretty stalled out as well. Blue-white, not a color combination we've seen in great force this weekend, Simon, but when it's come out to party, geez, it's partied hard.
Yeah, and it's also different if we are talking about team draft or team sealed. Because in team draft, you can really maximize the synergy of your deck. Flyers, Inspire Charges, whatever you want. But Danani also has some heavy hitters on his side of the board.
Pima Outrider coming across for a big trample attack. Looks like the Aradara Express is departing on time.
It's surprising that it's departing at all because it's a card that not a lot of players want in this format due to its high crew cost of 4.
So blockers ordered here. Salvato gaining that last little bit of value off that Ether Theorist that is not long for this world. Scrying 1. See if he likes the look of this card.
But
Danani sitting with an air of cool confidence about him.
is Salvato planning to use some of his mana, though? Maybe also bouncing Ether Trade Winds?
So it is going to be either trade wins. Up goes the Aradara Express. There's been a slight delay to the service here. See what else Salvato wants to target. It's going to be the plains. So as the dust settles, Salvato takes some damage from the Pillar Bug. And it's back to him now. Land in hand after picking up that plains again.
Salvato obviously feeling that he doesn't have the time to redeploy his artisan for some extra value here.
Yeah, I mean, that would be the immediate thing you'd think to gain squeeze some more value out, but without the wiggle room here for Salvato, he's obviously looking to make sure he's got a solid board presence. Sky Swell Harrier, the play for Salvato. And Danani now with 5 mana making his decision.
Design's deck doesn't impress me too much from what I'm seeing right here. And that's not because of card quality primarily, but mostly because I don't really see a synergetic deck at this moment.
Well, the Aradara Express is going to make another attempt at leaving the station here as the Sky Swirl Harrier comes in for 3. The Express, not a card, as you've mentioned, that has impressed many people. But believe it or not, here's Ripley. The Visionary Augmenter coming down with a couple of servos to boot. Very powerful 4-drop there.
Yeah, also a great card to combine with Ether Trade Winds, as are all Fabric card cards.
And now Danani has a think about how he's going to do it.
So now you actually have a lot of good blocks available. Double blocks on the Aradara Express, maybe a double block on the 5/3 Trample.
And the Arborback Stomper also threatening to get in there. 4 damage or 4 mana here. Can see Filigree Familiar hanging out, but here is Gonti, Lord of Luxury. Not the first time that the Lord of Luxury has made an appearance in this game. We saw throughout the Swiss Gonti turn up here and there. And Confiscation Coup, one of the cards that Gonti's ripped off the top there. Danani having a good old think about exactly which card he'd like to take, but I think the choice is very clear.
It's actually competing for a Wistweaver Angel, which is also super powerful on this board. You would get a 4/4 flyer, stopping the attacks of Salvato potentially.
Oh, geez. And it can flicker the Arborback Stomper. This is like Restoration Angel Thragtusk all over again.
Or you actually get to rebuy your Gonti and get another card of your opponent.
Also good. Admittedly, also good.
It's good to have options, you know? And that's actually why it's so hard to make this choice. Confiscation Coup is hard to pass up on. I agree with that.
I think it's between Confiscation Coup, the Wistweaver Angel, and what looks like 2 other lands here.
2 islands.
So, yeah,
yes.
so it's going to be one of those 2. And it looks like it's the Wistweaver Angel, an unconventional choice to be sure, but Danani is all about that value. And we're going to see Gonti jump aboard the Aradara Express, and Gordon leaves the station on time. Toot toot, he says. All aboard, let's go. And let's see if there are any unscheduled delays to the service. Salvato lines up his blocks in a very, very expedient fashion here.
Yeah, he thought about this before, clearly. 6 toughness on the Stomper is the crucial part of this block, but at the same time losing quite a bit to the Aradara Express.
So left behind with a Sky Swirl Harrier, which is a nice evasive threat for Salvato here, and also a Glint Sleeve Artisan, and an Ether Storm Rock, I should say, as well, as the Sky Swirl Harrier comes in. So Ether Storm Rock, an absolute stone-cold bomb of a card here. When it enters the battlefield, or another creature enters the battlefield, you get an energy counter. When it attacks, you can pay 2 energy, and if you do, you can snag yourself a +1/+1 counter and tap a creature on the opposing side here. And we'll see what Danani has to say about this here. Because the other thing to consider about Salvato is he has a huge energy reserve, Zimon.
Yeah, this makes the rock super scary.
1, 2, 3, 4 more cards now as Gonti makes a second appearance. These ones not quite as impressive as we see Windrake, as we see Dukara Peafowl. Man, that Confiscation coup would be a nice one here.
P-Fall a lot weaker when you don't have blue mana available. Prophetic Prism actually not the worst choice. Maybe just draw deeper into your deck if you know that the other cards are not going to help you enough.
The Windrake now seems to be at the top of the standings, and it is going to be Windrake there. So one of the important things to note about this card in Gonti, Lord of Luxury, is that your opponent doesn't know what you've taken. Your opponent doesn't know which of their cards you've hit. And it's back to Salvato now. We'll see if this Etherstorm Rock can really turn the tables here. Because Danani looked to be in a commanding position, especially with that big attack clearing out of many of Salvato's blockers. The Rock's going to come along now. +1/+1 counter on the Rock as the Angel gets tapped down. So no blocks available for Danani.
Salvato is forced to hold back with his other flyer, and that's really unfortunate. If he had a ground blocker for the Pillar Bug, I think we would see him race much more aggressively.
Attacks now. Danani smashing in. And we're going to see a trade between the Lord of Luxury and the Sky Swirl Harrier. Now, Danani can still cast that Windrake.
Important rules.
Yeah, this isn't a Night Vale Spectre type situation here. But we'll see how he wants to navigate this turn. A crucial one for the Frenchman. He's facing down Etherstorm Rock, which is certainly no tea party.
That's why I was considering the Prophetic Prism as an alternative choice. Windrake is not going to beat Etherstorm Rock in a fair fight, so you have to find maybe that tidy conclusion, maybe some other way to lock it down or destroy the Etherstorm Rock.
3 mana for a Filigree Familiar and a Filigree Familiar once again. So that has blanked the attack of the Etherstorm Rock from last turn, but the initiative now back on Salvato with Danani 2 cards in hand. Salvato finds a Glint Nest Crane. That's going to trigger the Rock and also hopefully replace itself here. Wow, wow.
3 spells, but none of them artifacts.
So down they go. And Salvato fires up the frying pan here. But no attacks.
No, this is a disaster. He has a 4/4 Rock, so he can't even dominate the Wisp-Weaver Angel, which was taken from him in the first place. So with Danani on 17, racing is out of the question. But how do you defend with this kind of board state?
And Danani happy enough to send his creatures in. He can buffer his life total thanks to the Pillar Bug. The Sea Sculptor's going to stay at home, keep an eye on things on the home front, while the Familiars jump in, and the Pillar Bug does too. No activation of the Pillar Bug here for Salvato to gain some life. But Danani does get to draw a card off that one Filigree Familiar. Salvato down to 2 now.
Danani wanting to keep his options open. Should he draw something that he needs to cast?
5 mana, and it's a Self-Assembler. Danani going to go and find another one. Oh, and look at that. Noxious Gearhulk on the bottom of his library. He'll be very happy to shuffle that away somewhere. I mean, could end up at the bottom again. And it's Servant of the Conduit.
I have a feeling that you don't need a Noxious Gearhulk to win this game.
No, absolutely not. It's Luis Salvato. Unfortunately, the Rock's cooking was not smelly enough in this situation. And Danani manages to even things up 1-1. And funnily enough, Javier Dominguez has also managed to even things up at the other end of the table here as Levy goes down in the second game. So things really balanced on a knife edge here. Tomoharu Sito has managed to keep things favouring his team. And it's him that we check in with now as a Glint Nest Crane looks to have just resolved. Sito ships the turn back to Carvalho here.
So if this turn goes as I expect it to go, we might have a 3-on-3, which means we would go from a best of 3 to a best of 1 on each of our tables.
Death cutthroat match here between these two. Should things pan out the way that you think they will. Carvalho.
Actually, not with the most aggressive attack that he could have made. A bit surprising to me, actually.
So a flash of rhinos coming in now. straight at Sito's dome. He'll have to respond here. Could have a select for inspection. We're going to see a block lined up first of all. And is it Ether Trade Winds? It is indeed. Yes, there we go. So resetting that Rhino rather handily, keeping Sito alive to fight another day, and also bouncing a value creature. If there's a player who could navigate his way out of this situation, it is Tomohiro Sito. We see now. Looks like Metal Spinner's Puzzle Knot there, deployed to the bottom of your screen. Draw a card, lose a life for Carvalho. And the 2016 Draft Master considering his next option. He's in his element here. Etherborn Marauder the play now. And will we see the +1/+1 counter move? We will indeed.
This does give Sito a bit more breathing room because we know he has that flying blocker.
The Glintnest Crane can hold off the Marauder. He's got a full grip. And he's got a lot of mana with which to deploy it here. But Carvalho at the moment holds all of the figurative cards, if not all the literal ones.
I still think that that he should have attacked with all his creatures last turn.
Yeah, push through those extra 2 points of damage.
Yeah, because I couldn't see the Glintnest Crane blocking the 2/1 in any profitable way.
Sito now. A wealth of options to choose from. Gearseeker Serpent there. No way to power that one out this turn. And one additional mana should he need it in the form of the island in his hand. 2 mana. Going to kick things off with a Glintnest Crane. Yeah. 4 cards off the top. And I saw a Swamp amongst them here. Oh, and a Prophetic Prism. A nice little hit there for Sito.
Not the board impacting card he was hoping for, though.
No, certainly it looks like he's run out of breathing room here after a very emphatic victory in the first game. Things taken a little bit slower for Sito this time around. Carvalho, tacit approval of the fact that his opponent played an island. Sito has to ship here. Carvalho, very close to a victory you would assume, as another Rhino comes down. And now we see an all-out attack.
Yeah, and this time it's once again one attacker too much for Sito to survive just on the basis of what we're currently seeing. But a combat trick, of course, would make that absolutely lethal.
Could be a couple of things here. We could see an Ether Meltdown. We could see a select for inspection as well. We could see a dramatic reversal, but I don't imagine that'll happen.
2 selects for inspection would probably keep Sito alive for another turn. He actually has a lot of options, given that his Prophetic Prism would allow him to cast any kind of...
oh, that's true. Here. Yeah, we could be seeing a Harness Lightning. Probably not. But we could be. Glintnest Crane. We'll see it line up a block here. Carvalho still sitting pretty on 19, and Sito very clearly indicating that he has something about this, and it is the other Meltdown as well on the Rhino. Obviously, recognizing the Rhino as a greater threat than the Etherborn Marauder, as Sito is knocked down to 1 here. And we see Armorcraft Judge. That's a nice follow-up here for Carvalho, drawing 2 cards off it. Tidy.
Yeah, that's very nice. With the additional card stored in the Puzzle Knot, he is very far ahead on life. I believe he just dealt, yeah, exactly. He dealt another 3. So now Sito cannot take any damage from any of those creatures.
Can Sito worm his way out of this one? Metal Spinner's Puzzle Knot in hand. Not where he wants to be. So an absolute blankski there.
It's a way to end the game.
Certainly is that. Oh dear. Draw another card off the inventor here. And ships the turn.
He's technically alive. He has three blockers to Cavallo's 3 creatures, but Cavallo is tapping his mana pre-combat just to draw a card.
Another card here for Carvalho. And finds a Seed Sculptor.
Does that change the math? Making making the flyer 4 power is the first thing that comes to my mind to get through the Sky Gate. But it could also be better to put it on another creature to make sure that there are just no profitable blocks at all.
Yes, so once again we see a diversified portfolio here for Calalo as he attacks with his 3 creatures, and Sito with no choice other than to line up some blocks.
Yeah, this way it's guaranteed that all creatures except for the Sky Gate go down on Sito's side of the battlefield.
So Calalo there, snagging some extra cards off a Bomat Bazaar Barge. And Sito draws. Calalo. He can sniff it in the air, and he has indeed identified the smell correctly. It is the smell of victory, and look at this. Things all tied up between these two, and between Rafael Levy and Javier Dominguez, there is a result, and we can see Dominguez has won his match against the French Hall of Famer. So now 1 game away. Carvalho and Salvato, they only need to win 1 game, and that is that for their semi-final. These guys sideboarding now, and we'll be back, of course, as soon as they get underway. But let's check in with Danani and Salvato. This game now a potential match winner here. This one could end the match if Danani isn't able to keep his head above water. But at this stage, he seems to be developing his board nicely. Pricata Club Security coming out, along with Filigree Familiar. Of course, the other semi-final is underway on our back table, and you may have noticed we've very deliberately not been talking about it because very simple reason for that is live coverage, or sorry, a replay of that match will be coming your way live on the stream. So we're not wanting to spoil the result. Zimon and I are sitting here without knowing it as well. We're in the dark just as much as you are. But if you are desperate for some results as you go through the tournament, you can find them elsewhere on the internet. Jump onto Twitter or maybe even the mothership, and you might be able to find something here. But we're going to keep these results in the dark, even being kept from us here, so we can provide all the tension and the drama that come along with these high-stakes matches.
And we can start commentating on them as soon as this semi-final is over.
Yep.
That's the beauty of the replay.
Regardless of whether it's finished or not, we can actually stream the replay while the match is still in progress. So that semi-final will be brought to you as soon as this one comes to an end, which could be very soon if Luis Salvato has his way here.
Yes,
Danani once again, Aradara Express.
This is a very even board. Both players deploying their threats. Aradara Express has come down again. Let's hope it doesn't get bounced as in the game before. But overall, taking 1 damage a turn on life totals of 19 and 20 is effectively nothing.
Aviary Mechanic bouncing the Aether Hub. Gains Salvato another energy counter. He's on 9 energy. That's just bananas.
No, he can start scrying now. He has 4 mana, 4 lands, and doesn't really need many more for his deck to operate.
No, it seems pretty lean and mean, to be honest. Blue-white again, not a traditionally strong color pair in Kaladesh Limited, but it's certainly done Luis Salvato well enough so far. Danani's deck seems to be lacking in just a few key areas. Pricata Club Security and the Aradara Express, certainly second-tier commons here. Oh,
of course, but we have to be fair. We are now watching a team draft. This is not Team Seal anymore. So we could expect the power level to go down quite a bit.
Yeah, interesting to hear the perspectives of many people here at the venue about the team draft dynamic. Often the power level of the decks drops dramatically. Fewer boosters open, more cards being hated out, and Noxious Gearhulk, however. Let's talk about cards with a power level. How about this? One of the absolute show-stopping cards here.
And large enough to crew Aradara Express by himself.
Oh, handy. There we go. You can imagine him just sitting on top of it. Like CJ on a motorbike, as we see now the Pricata Club Security trading with the Windrake, and that's a huge swing in the favor of the Frenchman. Back to Salvato now. Looks like he's scrying here with the Ether Theorist, and it's going to stay on top, so that's a good sign for him. Draws it. And I think we're immediately going to see this Dakara P-foul played. But Danani here really putting his foot to the floor, not only with the Aradara Express, but also the Noxious Gearhulk.
Salvato correcting the ether that he had to pay for the scry.
For the Ether Theorist there, the Ether Theorist, costing him 1 energy.
Still good deal.
Certainly Salvato with energy to spare. Self-Assembler number 1, finding Self-Assembler number 2. Really cool card, this. Defensible inclusion in any deck, you would think. And look at this, the Self-Assembler's also going to get the train running on time. And in comes the 8/6. What does Salvato have to say about this? Both of these creatures with Menace, so lining up blocks here is going to be very tricky. You have to block with all of his creatures or none, essentially.
Yeah, especially because of the high toughness situation. Blocking Aradara Express with all of your creatures while getting beaten down by Noxious Gearhulk is not a good feeling.
Blah, blah, blah.
Taking 8, however, when you're facing so many 4 and 5 power creatures on the other side of the board is probably not a good idea either.
So Noxious Gearhulk trading now with the P-Foul. And so often, as we see with Noxious Gearhulk, it is just a straight up 2-for-1. Very neat and tidy.
So if Danani wins this, Sito and Calalo have to duke it out.
Yeah, have to decide things. And we see now Malfunction off the top there. Salvato very calm and collected about that card. Ether Theorist ensuring it's in the right place at the right time. And Danani now, what can he find? Self-Assembler obviously in hand, thanks to its friend who discovered it.
Potentially doing the math on Oval Chase Dragster, if I'm spotting that one correctly.
If that is an Oval Chase Dragster here, Danani could be in a position to push through some extra damage. 6/1 Trample Haste, the Oval Chase Dragster, of course. Can be crewed by the Familiar.
But you might just as well wait one more turn with it if it's not immediately lethal, that is, because that's not really running away from you. Yeah,
4 mana. It is the Oval Chase Dragster, and we've
So-
got a Fox jumping into a Ferrari, and in come both of these attackers here. 6/1 Trample Haste and the 4/4 Assembler.
The problem here is that the Crane is the only creature with 3 toughness, so it's basically a forced block. And then suddenly you have only 3 power left to block the Assembler with. This is actually, yeah, this is just not, there just isn't a good block, which is what Danani realized.
Embral Bruiser coming down here, a 3/1, enters the battlefield tapped. So another aggressive play here from Danani, and that's going to be enough to get him over the line. So this game, this match, poised on a knife edge, ladies and gentlemen. Tomoharu Saito, Marcio Calvario, it all comes down to this game on your screen right now. This will decide the future of the these players here, as Saito is being beaten down here by Sage of Shayla's Claim, in addition to the Otherborn Marauder, which steals some cards off of the Thriving Rhino. Metallurgic Summons on the battlefield for Tomoharu Saito creates an XX colorless construct whenever Saito plays an instant or sorcery, where X is equal to its converted mana cost. And then you can cash in the Metallurgic Summonings for all the instants and sorceries in the graveyard. Don't know if that's going to be happening just yet. Oh, and Tezzeret's Ambition, and to make a 5/5 and draw 3 cards, that's not too bad.
But if the life totals are correct and Saito is on 5, drawing cards is not what he needed here. He needed basically 2 creatures. So, or an instant or sorcery that removed a creature. Tidy Conclusion would have been the perfect card to cast.
Well, he's not packing them up just yet. So perhaps there's something. Perhaps there's something. 1 extra mana.
Select for inspection.
It has to be select for inspection. There's basically nothing else.
You would even get a 1/1
Yeah.
blocker out of the deal, which would be a complete blowout.
For the Sage of Nature's, the Sage of Shayla's Claim here. And we see now Die Young. Didn't exactly see how much energy Carvalho had there.
He had exactly 3, so...
+5. Kills the construct. Attack with everything. An extension of the hand from Tomoharu Saito, and Marcio Calvario leads his team in to the final of GP Rotterdam, the draft master for 2016, has managed to take his team all the way to the end of this tournament. We are, of course, now, my friends, due to bring you the other semi-finals from the back tables. So commiserations to Levy, Sito and Danani after finishing the top of the Swiss, falling in the semi-finals. But very well fought by them all the same. As we move back to Andre Straski and Frank Casten here, these two huge, heavy-hitting heavyweights here of Magic. The old versus the new, it's fair enough to say. Casten and Straski here, opening up, and it's going to be Straski to break the ice with an Eddie Tail Hawk. So this game, of course, coming to you as a replay. Simon and I have been kept in the dark about the results here, so we're just as unsure as you as to exactly how this is going to pan out. Straski with the initiative, and he's also got a 3-drop, and what a 3-drop it is too. Aerial responder, Simon.
Wow. Harness Lightning, yep, that's the perfect answer.
Nice tidy answer here for Casten. He's enabled him to spend his mana efficiently, and it's up to him now to find a 3-drop that's going to do something. And find it he does. Renegade Freighter is a nice one.
I want to mention for our viewers that the final draft will be recorded and commentated on, but because there is the deck building and registration period, we'll be able to show you as much as possible of this semi-final, the second semi-final, and then you'll still get all the action later on.
So coming to you at a bit of a delay, but of course for those who are impatient, jump online, jump on Twitter, jump on Daily MTG, and there'll be some results waiting for you there should you wish to seek them out. But right now, we're going to keep things as they are to make sure that we eke every drop of precious nutrients from these semi-final matches. Eddie Tail Hawk in for 1. Casten hit down to 18. High Spire Artisan coming down as well. We're going to see a servo. Yes, indeed we are.
No fourth land for Straski, and the board looks a lot less threatening since that Harness Lightning took down the 2/3 a lifelink vigilance creature.
Herald of the Fair comes down. Looks like he might be jumping aboard a train. Yes, indeed. Toot toot. In comes the 5/4. Straski hit down to 15. No blocks here for him. Both of these players, of course, not just worthy opponents of one another, but also good friends. Stalwarts of the Magic professional scene here in Europe. And really, when we look at the team lineups, it's great to see that Casten has gone all the way with 2 hometown heroes here, Brent Voss and Bas Melis, both of them from the Netherlands, flying the flag proudly here. Andre Straski rolling in with a couple of foreigners, PV DDR and Shahar Shenhar, with a resume as long as your arm, ladies and gentlemen. As long as 2 of your arms, probably, unless you're an orangutan. In which case, welcome. It's good to have you here. That servo is buffed up now by the Kujar Seed Sculptor. Should mention, you're also welcome if you're not an orangutan.
All these creatures on Straski's board are not racing a single Aradara Express, so not where he wants to be, I reckon. Renegade Freighter, sorry. I was still in the
previous game, yeah.
Noxious Gearhulk riding the
train to victory.
High speed.
Got Big Smoke behind him telling him how to get it done. But right now, the Renegade Freighter once again, stand clear of the doors please, mind the gap, all aboard, let's get to it. And are we going to see a block here? We are indeed. So that servo, rather perplexingly, this would explain it here, built to last. Servo has been built to last. Kaladesh Engineering, keeping the servo around by the look of things. Making it indestructible, and that's, once again, a flavor violation, you would say.
But a huge swing for Straski. Single white mana, biggest threat of Casten answered, and suddenly things looking a lot better.
So the servo made indestructible by built to last. The power and toughness boost also helping in removing the Renegade Freighter.
Importantly, built to last also usable on defense.
As distinct from built to smash.
Exactly.
Which does exactly what it says on the tin, really. Instructions included in the title here. Frank Casten now, Eddie sitting behind a Skyswell Harrier. Eddie Tail Hawk still on the battlefield from turn 2 for Straski. And the 3/4 is going to come in. Straski, nothing to say about that. Hit down to 14. Well, hit down to 11 even. And 5 mana now. The follow-up play for Casten is another 3/4 flyer. Really good rate on this card.
I have to check Frank Carson's pick order list for the position of Skyswell Harrier because it's not easy to draft highly because it does cost 5 and it's a vanilla creature, a flying vanilla creature. On the other hand, there are enough games where it's actually the deciding factor.
Yeah, just one of those cards that you can really run away with, especially if your opponent's unprepared to deal with flyers. But Multiform Wonder is a card that Straski is going to be able to lean on heavily to try to push things through here. This card's really impressed me, but we're not going to see too much of it this time as the Fairgrounds Warden says, "Hey, mate, let me see your ticket." "Oh, what's that?" "Please come with me, sir." And now, in come the Eagles.
It's not quite a two-turn clock because there is a flyer and a reach creature on Straski's side of the board, but he needs to find something soon.
Fireweaver comes down now. So Reckless here as a 1/3. And that means that anytime Casten plays an artifact, it can ping Straski for 1. And with Straski on 5 here, Casten is looking to press this advantage. That was a nice answer to the Multiform Wonder there.
Very nice answer.
Very hard to kill, especially when your opponent has a lot of energy flying around. Its toughness can be boosted incredibly highly. Riparian Tiger coming down as well, joining the fray, flexing its claws. This card's really, really done some work this weekend.
Tiger has been super impressive. One of the most impressive commons, I would say.
Back to Casten now. White card in hand, in addition to 2 others I didn't quite see.
Casten has very little to fear. He might be considering the danger of an Inspired Charge, because that's the first thing that comes to your mind when you're playing against a white deck. Also, of course, these players have the information of which cards were in the draft and how late did they go.
Yeah, and that really can't be underrated, the importance of that. Seeing these cards going around the table, knowing that this player's probably picked up that common, or this uncommon's probably gone the way of this player, or what have you. And players like Casten and Straski, they'll have filed them away up in the brain zone. They'll be sorting through those bits and bytes and finding out the information they need to know.
Nowhere else but in the brain zone. The first question you ask your teammates when you get together to build your decks is, what did you pass? Did you see this card come around? Did this arrive at you or not? So you get the vital pieces of the puzzle sorted out.
And that way you can pinpoint a certain card, a hugely impactful card, say just for example, not necessarily this, but something like a Fumigate. You can pinpoint exactly where it went.
Yes. And a Fumigate of which you know the existence.
It's become so much worse.
Exactly.
Propeller Pioneer here. Casten certainly not playing around a Fumigate, although it would be pretty miserable for Straski as well here. Well, I suppose it would be a decent play, but unfortunately for Straski, he's not able to find anything, and as a result, packs him up. The first game goes to the Hall of Famer, Frank Casten. Not the most exciting match of Magic we've ever seen, but a still solid play there from Casten, who used some pretty solid evasive threats to get the job done. He consults with his sideboard, as indeed does Andre Straski.
Lots of birds in this
Yeah.
match. I actually think even the Multiform Wonder wouldn't have been too dominant because ultimately it doesn't match up well against 3/4 flyers when you think about it.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, often the even one hit with the Multiform Wonder can be enough to really turn the tide of a game. Getting in for 5 with lifelink and flying, I mean, it brings its own energy to the party, and a 10-point life swing can sometimes be enough to put a game beyond reach. But in that case, we saw low impact, and Zimon, you're contending even without the Fairgrounds Warden, it wouldn't have done much. We move on now to Paula Vida Damad Roa, the famous Brazilian Hall of Famer, and Brent Voss, who has really shown his colours as a limited master throughout this weekend. These guys went undefeated for the longest period of time before finishing up 3rd in the Swiss after an absolute nail-biter in round 14. They'll be looking to capitalise on those victories and make sure they make something of it. Damad Roa on blue-white, no stranger to success for him. $1 billion GP top 8s and about double that when it comes to the Pro Tour. Been in the Hall of Fame since the age of 3.5. And he's considering a big attack here with these Thopters.
One of the youngest, if not the youngest, inductee into the Hall of Fame.
And thoroughly deserving of the honour as well. What's perplexing me here, Zimon, is we're seeing a Weldfast monitor in a blue-white deck. Is Damad Roa that short on playables?
It's possible, but of course we didn't see what went down here. It looks like he wants to have as many artifacts as possible, but also see an energy theme. At this point, we're not even sure if it belonged to his deck or if it was stolen from his opponent. That
is also another option. Looking at the color of his sleeves as well, very difficult. It's difficult to make out exactly how that has gone here, but Damad Roa's deck dripping and dribbling all over the show at this stage, but he seems to be doing the work here. Brent Voss on black-red. And he's got what looks like an off-color puzzle knot.
So that would that probably tells us something.
Has there been a shrewd negotiation?
Yeah, that's what I expect. You don't usually put off-color puzzle knots in your decks. And Weldfast Monitor, while possible, it's not a card you have to be ashamed of, but you usually wouldn't want to run it in your blue-white decks.
Yeah, that seems to be the most obvious answer here.
Glad we figured it out without seeing the graveyards. Although now Brent is actually taking a very good look at what he's facing. That's a lot of power.
He's writing down some of the cards that have already been played here. Looks like we've seen Cloudblazer, an absolute huge card. We've got Skyskiff there as well. I can see what looks like the shrewd negotiation, fourth from the top, but if you spotted that there, Zimon, we already talked about this card. It's Fumigate.
It's Fumigate, yes, and that's not only Fumigate, but also the second card between Fumigate and Cloudblazer is Paradoxical Outcome.
Paradoxical Outcome as well, a vintage playable card here. Looks like Brent Voss is happy to pack them up now to Damad Roa now that he's got the information that he needs. So Damad Roa with a very powerful draw engine there, and obviously picking up something like a Cloudblazer. Oh my goodness me, just bananas there.
But you know what the key is? The key is it's instant speed. You return all your creatures at the end of your opponent's turn or during combat, and then you Fumigate. It makes...
Oh, geez, the tech.
It makes mass removal
so much better. You pick up all your creatures, gain a bunch of life, and your opponent's got an empty board and you got a full hand.
Well, there's nothing better.
No, absolutely. And the way they were stacked in the graveyard made it look like exactly that had been done. Zimon, you're a genius.
Oh, well, PV is a genius.
We move now to Shenhar fighting against Baz Melis. Shenhar, two-time world champion here. Also one of the young masters of Magic.
He will try to become Israel's team world champion next weekend. Wow. Some intense blocking going on.
Yeah, Baz Melis really looking to make sure these creatures aren't getting through here. That Quicksmith genius, smug smile of self-satisfaction, obviously has awoken the ire of the High Spire artisans as they've gang blocked here.
But still 7 damage coming through from Baz, so he has taken some damage this turn.
Shenhar with a pretty well-developed board there. You can see a Wingsmith, the self-assembler. Speedway Fanatic. A couple of Vidalkins hanging out the back there. And now it's Elegant Edgecrafters. We're seeing Baz Melis really double down on his +1/+1 counters here. Not a single servo token to be seen.
Super defensive deck from Baz Melis. And he's not facing the most aggressive deck on Shenhar's side, so it's really interesting to see if Shenhar can make something out of it, but also what is actually Baz's plan. Does he have some bombs he's working towards, some gear hulks, some mass removal? We don't know.
Iron League Steed here. Coming up the ground even further. Even though it has haste, it's not going to be making any attacks.
Yeah, Shenhar is not fighting with the best.
Ooh, here we go. Armorcraft Judge. That'd be another reason. How about this? 4-mana draw 4, by the way, 3/3 as well. That's just absolutely disgusting here. Shenhar will be spewing into his boots as a result of that huge play from Baz Melis. He plays another land, and wow, that's really a game changer.
I prefer extra cards to servos as well, so can't blame Bas Melis here.
No, he's done really, really well with this. Obviously playing up towards this card, you would think.
Might have been holding it already. Who knows?
Yeah, may have known the big turn was to come as he, one by one, slowly unveiled the butt parade with the 3 High Spire Artisans and the Elegant Edgecrafters. And it's back to Bas Melis now, with Shenhar not having much to say about this parade of large bottom creatures. As you mentioned, Simon, Melis in a very defensive position, so we'll be looking to see something that is going to close the game out for him.
Yeah, and that's the big question for both of these players. What are they actually drawing towards?
With a huge board stall, however, we're going to check back in with Straski and Casten. We already saw Casten take game number 1. We'll see if he can repeat his performance in game number 2, or does Straski have something to say about it? Impeccable timing here from Frank Casten.
A risky one, but it worked out for him.
And we'll see a block as well with the Reckless Fireweaver. Straski stuck just on green here. He's got another forest in hand.
And Frank can be almost sure that there is no combat trick coming, because that would have saved the Rhino in 99% of all cases.
High Spire Artisan as a 1/4. I hear that's the in mode at the moment.
If you want to draw cards.
Oh, it's so hot right now.
I like it as a 1/4. You know, a 0/3, it's really difficult to make something work, make it do something.
World Fast Modern, and now the play for Casten. He's got no good attacks in the face of the 1/4. And Straski finds the plane, so he's going to be able to deploy this Thriving Ibex here. And now we go back to the Dutch Hall of Famer to find a response.
Straski full on the counter theme. Might actually have an Armorcraft Judge.
Wouldn't be surprised with the way that we've seen him play this out. Even drawing 2 cards stapled onto a 3/3 for 4. I mean, even as a 3/3 for 4, you're not, it's not the end of the world.
Oh, that's already Hill Giant territory, and imagine the Ibex picking up a counter next turn.
Oh my goodness! Armorcraft Judge, a card with just almost unlimited upside, really.
That's what makes it so interesting.
Low floor, or sorry, high floor, high ceiling. And now the 9th Bridge Patrol. No further plays for Casten here. He could be holding on to another instant speed trick here.
Frank is used to playing Mem Knights and assorted other 1/1s.
So he feels very much at home here.
His creatures are really, really lacking in power and toughness compared to what Straski is working with.
And that's the way, he likes it here. The Dutch Hall of Famer, very happy with small creatures. But as you say, Simon Gertzen, being a bit stonewalled by these huge defensive plays of Andre Straski. In comes the Thriving Ibex. What's Casten's response here? This 9th Bridge Patrol could grow to large proportions. Or are we going to see just a double block here? A triple block, I should say. How do you play this out?
Well, if you block with Weldfast Monitor and you have Build to Last in hand, you have to cast it immediately. That's one way. Or you triple block and just see what happens, but you would still lose 2 creatures if you don't cast any tricks.
Yeah, that's right. You could lose the Patrol and the Monitor.
However, if you triple block and Straski thinks this through, he will put the Patrol first and the Weldfast Monitor second. So the ordering of the blockers here is actually crucial.
Well, we'll see what Straski does. In hand for him, 2 cards.
To me, this signals, this play from Casten signals a certain weakness, but it also tells you, I know you're playing green-white. I know there are a bunch of combat tricks. I dare you to play it, and I will have my response. I have my 2 mana open, so...
Yeah, and with that 2 mana representing any number of potential outcomes here. Anything from Built to Last to something like Built to Smash. Harness Lightning also an option for Casten. We did see that deployed in game number 1.
Build to Smash, of course, not useful on defense here.
Castable. Technically correct is the best kind of correct, as many a Magic player has said in the past. But no, Straski's just going to pick up a nice tidy 2-for-1 here. And it's back to Casten without any further plays. Straski, for his part, also not playing anything.
It looked like Frank was about to attack with his Fire Weaver. That was that would have been a delight.
But instead now, it's the Harrier. And down comes a Tiger.
Yeah, Straski would have preferred the turn earlier, I'm sure, but still a threat on this board.
Yes, indeed. A Fighting Fury down from Tigerland, the Riparian Tiger here. Casten leaning so heavily on his 3-4 flies to bring him to victory in the last game here. No result, it's important to note, from Shenhar, Shenhar and Melis. Those guys, as we saw, in a bit of a gridlock, and they haven't managed to find a result so far.
Yeah, very defensive board state, and it wasn't really clear what was happening.
Bomat Bridge Bazaar Barge Battlebot coming down here. Drawing a card. Can't go too wrong with a card that replaces itself, especially when it stands to be a 4-mana 5-5. The crew cost a little restrictive at 3.
And of course, the High Spire Artisan holding back the bird on Frank's side of the board.
High Spire Artisan really just an all-around great card. It does what you need it to do. Early defense, can hold down the fort, and I mean, a 1/4 reach for 3 is just never a bad deal.
Surprisingly good for the decks that want this kind of effect. That want this kind of defensive effect, or the synergy with either artifacts or +1/+1 counters.
I've just seen consistently through this format that 1-power creatures with large toughness are just really, really good. They're in a great spot.
I absolutely agree. You could argue that certain decks want the High Spire Artisan more than the Thriving Rhino. But usually, for example, in draft, you don't know exactly where your deck is heading.
So you'd rather take the good card.
You take the card that is more likely to make your deck as good as it can be.
Eddie Tail Hawk, the play now for Straski. Only able to deploy 1 white card a turn as it stands. And we'll see what Casten has to say about things. The attack with the Harrier becoming less and less attractive.
But the vehicle, the barge, doesn't really have good attacks either. So right now, Frank is still basically facing this dilemma of having creatures which are just not large enough.
Yeah, he's been outclassed here, certainly, with the quality of his creatures, and that hasn't changed much with this Thriving Grubs. A 2-1 that attacks as a 3-2 still isn't getting there, but they are going to jump aboard the Bomat Bazaar Barge. And we'll see now an attack here for 8. So now Straski has to line up some blocks and see how he's going to get through this one here. The Tiger Core, of course, losing a bit of value on defense, rather than all of its abilities lining up to make it a very aggressive creature. But it can still slash some claws around.
Oh, and Frank successful in dealing 5 here.
And the follow-up play. Oh, look at this. Very nice indeed. Hoo-hoo. I like that a lot there. Getting a huge amount of value out of that furious reprisal. And that means that the Sky Swirl Harrier is now the uncontested King of the Skies.
That's really, really good. And at the same time, because you're still threatening the attacks with the 5/5, it's really difficult for Straski to race back here.
Yeah, I really like the way that Casten maneuvered himself there to make sure he got a huge amount of value out of that removal spell. We've seen Furious Reprisal really impress at every point that it's been played. Obviously, as a sorcery, a 4-mana sorcery can sometimes be pretty clunky, especially if it gets stuck in your hand without good targets or what have you, but much of the time it's just been a straight-up 2-for-1.
I agree. It has always found its applications. Sometimes just taking out 2 creatures fair and square, but often after combat.
So Hunter Week is going to slam the brakes on here for Casten as his King of the Skies is taken away. The Sky Swirl Harrier is no more. Chomped up by the Tiger, leapt out of the tree branches and took the Hawk down, you would think. I think it's an eagle. Bloody big one, though. It's got a deer in its claws. And the Tiger comes across now and gives Casten a good licking.
Straski is now trying to turn this around. The Tiger in particular, very difficult for Casten to block. So Is it going to be full-on race mode here? It looks like it is.
Yeah, on your marks, get set, go. As we see, no, an attack. So the exact opposite of what I expected there.
This deals 4. The barge would have only dealt 5, so maybe it's actually the better play.
Solid follow-up here for Casten with the revoked privileges, meaning the Tiger's been put back in his cage. No more trips to the arcade for you, young man. Andrei Straski. Having a look at the cards in his hand. Only 2 of them here. Both of them white. Looks like one might be a... is that another return privileges to revoke return serve with?
I believe I saw an impeccable timing in Straski's
Yeah.
hand.
Still stuck on just 1 planes here, so Straski not able to deploy his cards in the fashion I'm sure he'd prefer to. Seed Sculptor comes in. That's a free attack. And then now it's back to Casten. Dr. Frank also with 2 cards in hand.
Fragmentize would have been also really, really helpful. Freeing up the Tiger or dealing with something on the battlefield. Always difficult to board it in, though, or to play too many in the main deck because you don't know if you will have targets.
Casten now in with the barge. The Grubs now able to drive it by themselves. Obviously that attack there taught them a thing or two about how to drive steamships. Once again, we're in shaky flavor territory here, but Casten is in no doubt about how aggressive he wants to be. That impeccable timing that you spotted, Zimon, taking out the Fireweaver, but it's still in for 5 for Straski here, and the second Harrier taking to the skies. Still no further updates from our back tables, as you can see on the scoreboard at the top of your screen, ladies and gentlemen.
And that impeccable timing was...
impeccably timed.
But very weak at the same time. Killing a 1-3 that didn't even threaten to trigger. I mean, that's the low end of the spectrum.
Mm-hmm. Straski recognizing that he doesn't have a lot of great targets for it. And so snapping it off. And what have we got here? Looks like an Architect of the Untamed. Straski considers his next move. It seems to be the Architect of the Untamed, but of course I'd like to just stop for 1 second and say thank you very much for choosing to join us today. It's been quite a whirlwind adventure that we've had up and down the tables of GP Rotterdam, and it's been great to have your company alongside us as we've delved into this fantastic format. It's treated us so well throughout the last couple of days, and so have you, our audience, tuning in and choosing to share your time with us. It's been an absolute privilege to bring you these matches, and a great joy as we continue all the way through to the end of it. But wherever you are around the world, thanks for tuning in. It's been fantastic so far, and we hope to bring this to a huge big conclusion for you in the coming matches. Architect of the Untamed. It's going to instead be the Seed Sculptor that has been built to last.
Okay.
And that takes care of the barge.
Not
But
quite.
still a 2 for 1.
Not quite lethal in the air.
Straski with his head in his hand here. Casten coolly flicking those cards around.
If you lose this game, not only do you lose to Frank Karsten, he will also lend his support to his teammates.
That's the way it goes here for Andrei Straski. Unfortunately, freeing up Frank Casten, yes, indeed, to go and lend his support. But the other side of it is Straski gets to do exactly the same. So it probably a net benefit for both of these players here. But unfortunately for young Andrei Straski, he has been beaten in straight sets by the Flying Dutchman. Dr. Frank Casten going up 2-0 against his friend and teammate Andrei Straski. Not a teammate in this situation, though, as we flip to the current teammate of Frank Casten, Brent Voss. He's playing against Polovita Damad Roa, who's packing up his cards as well. So it looks like it's a double victory for the Dutch here, as things poised pretty evenly now. Shenhar and Bas Melis still stuck at 1 and... Oh, sorry, it's 0 all, it looks.
Who knows if they're still playing? But that's actually good for us. We can show...
Oh, it's magic all day and all night here.
Yeah, we can see what happens at this table, and if PV manages to equalize, then we'll have a nice finale to show between Shenhar and Melis.
So PV and Brent Voss now 1 and 1. We'll see how things shake out after sideboarding here. Shenhar and Bas Melis, as we mentioned, 0-0. So things tied up. You'd have to say here in the favour of the Dutch, and if things go even further now as we see Melis pick up his first victory here.
Triple victory in a row, hat-trick for the Dutchman.
They've put themselves in a very favourable and commanding position here, and this game between PV and Brent Voss could prove to be absolutely decisive. Shenhar and Bas Melis also, you would think, hitting the sideboards, considering their options. Bit of a powwow between the three players on each side now as they consider how they're going to attack these final games. De Rosa will have to win this, and Shenhar will have to win as well.
It's great how a lot of teams here found the best possible pro configuration to bring to Rotterdam to compete in this Grand Prix, and Frank went with his friends.
Yeah.
And he's looking really strong.
Absolutely crushing it. That's it. His friends are obviously no newcomers to the game, no slouches themselves. Brent Voss and Bas Melis have absolutely pulled their weight here.
Oh, absolutely. That was not meant to imply that they are lesser players, but of course, when you are looking at Platinum Pros, World Championships players, Hall of Famers, it's a different category.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely. And nice to see Casten enjoying the success that he has alongside his two friends. And once again, locals, it's important to add, flying the flag for the Netherlands here as they will be, well, not these people in particular, but of course a crowd of Dutch fans, of course, will be here in Amsterdam cheering on the hometown heroes, in Rotterdam, I should say, for the World Magic Cup in 1 week's time. That'll be brought to you live and uninterrupted, of course, twitch.tv/magic in 1 week's time. The World Magic Cup. Greatest magicians in the world will be coming here to do battle.
Lot of them are already here.
A lot of them already here. Facing off against each other this weekend. You'll be there too, Zimon.
I will.
In the booth.
I'll be bringing you commentary.
So these players now consulting with their opening hands. PV looks like he's stuck on a one-lander here, so he's going to keep it as well. Or is there a second land as well? Okay. Not quite the mayor of Loose Keep City just yet. And Nether Theorist off the top is a nice one here for the Brazilian. Those life totals, of course, 20 and 20 at this stage.
PV really not known for loose keeps. I think that's a fair description. He built himself some kind of combo deck. Combo control... Fumigate.
Scrying, keeping it on the top. It was a land, unsurprisingly.
Yeah, I would assume only a land would have been kept on top.
Didn't have the other theorist in his hand, though. So he was relying on a bit of good fortune to see him through these opening turns. And Nether Theorist is certainly going to smooth things out for him there. And we'll see how Voss wants to play this after De Rosa. Oh, no. He twos and froze. He comes and goes. And now we're going to see Servo Exhibition come down. And it's the Infiltrator from Brent Voss now.
Not quite as scary in the beginning of the game, and without a vehicle to tap him.
Yeah, this is one of the cards that we see provide a lot of reach to the red-white vehicles decks, or just vehicles decks in general. But I think definitely if you've got a strong vehicle theme, you want to be in red-white.
PV is finding lands, but he's also deploying a lot of artifacts. His Gear Seeker Serpent will be really cheap very soon.
So we have heard confirmation that the life totals were indeed stuck, but they have been reset now. So we're at 20 and 20, and hopefully no more issues coming your way from on the life total front. Gearshift takes the play along with the Cog Workers Puzzle Knot here for Damad Roa, going quite wide here.
Also, the gear shift ace, I don't think it's there to crew vehicles. It's just there to hold off 2 toughness creatures. For those not familiar with paradoxical outcome, which I think is something that is not required reading.
Yeah, not something to be ashamed of there.
For 4 mana, you get to return any number of non-land, non-token permanents to their owner's hand. You control to their owner's hand. So basically, the servo tokens are not included in the deal.
Mm-hmm. You have to pick up real cards. Oh, look at this. Speaking of real cards, how about a 3-mana Gearseeker Serpent?
3 mana for 5/6 potentially unblockable snake. That's Serpent. That's great.
That's a great deal. And now Brent Voss receiving a word or two of wisdom as to how to navigate this situation here. DeRosa's deck puzzling to me, I have to say, as we see now a tidy conclusion.
I'm sure we'll learn more about its workings.
I'm just interested to see so many servos which don't work well with Fumigate and don't work well with Paradoxical Outcome. We're still running Cogworker's Puzzle Knock and we're still running Servo Exhibition. I guess we need early defense. I don't know.
The puzzle knot.
I'm not questioning it.
The puzzle knot does work rather well with the outcome in the sense that you do get to return
that's true.
itself.
Yeah, for sure. Bit of extra value there. I mean, believe it or not, DeRosa is one of the greatest Magic players on Earth. I'm sure he knows what he's doing here.
My biggest question is if he realized all this combo potential of his deck while drafting it.
Yeah, for sure.
Or if it was more like a revelation at the end.
Yeah, the Paradoxical Outcome's gone around the table twice, and he's like, yeah, I guess so. Stick it in the trade binder afterwards. And here is the Paradoxical Outcome. So just as a 4-mana draw 3 at this stage, but still, I mean, that's good eating. So can't pick up the servo tokens.
Brent might want to respond killing one of these permanents so that PV loses the card but also doesn't get to draw 3 here.
No, that's just going to resolve the way that it goes. So 3 cards for Damad Roa, and that Die Young is countered, meaning no extra energy for Brent Voss. World-Fast Monitor jumps in with Menace, and we're going to see 1 damage done by the Infiltrator. Will DeRosa block? I don't mind trading the 2 servos here. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, the question is, do you block with 2 or do you block with 3 servos? Because if you block with 2, you're like any kind of ping effect means your defenses are really looking weak. If you block with 3, of course you're getting a worse deal, but at least you're stemming the bleeding. After having drawn 3 cards and having set yourself back in tempo by that much, I think you should go for a very defensive block. And that's not the one that I would have made.
Very defensive indeed. Harness Lightning taking out one of those servo tokens. So
maybe I should have said conservative block because this was a life total preserving block, but it was not a conservative block in the face of removal.
And this is what has happened exactly here. Those servos blocking really for no profit, gaining 6 life essentially. And maybe that's what DeRosa wants to do. Stall out the game, make it go as long as possible. He's got 500,000 cards in hand.
Exactly.
Want to deploy them.
Also the ace, the gear shift ace, a big part here. How many cards does he have in hand? Exactly 7? It's almost like he planned all of that.
Almost. The gear shift ace really a huge roadblock to the board of Brent Voss here.
Yeah, and if PV's hand shaped up in a way that he knew that as long as he stays on high enough life total, he will have no significant issues to stop the bleeding, then the block he made was perfectly fine, because ultimately trading Harness Lightning for a servo token is a great deal.
Lathnu Helion comes down as well, a 3-mana 4/4. Gains 2 energy when it comes into play. It has haste as well, and you've got to pay 2 energy or sacrifice it at the end step. So here we see an attack now. The World-Fast Monitor is going to eat it to an impeccable timing, however. The Gear Shift Ace not able to block it because of its gained ability of Menace, which means the Lathnu Helion is going to come across uncontested, and Brent Voss with 4 energy in his reserve. That Helion's here to stay for at least a while.
A trigger that's easy to forget, by the way.
Yeah, usually it's at the upkeep where we see these sorts of things.
Exactly.
Ether coming down as well, coming up the ground even further, and Ether number 2, and now the puzzle knot, which we already knew about.
Do you know why it's at the end step and not in your upkeep?
Tell me.
So that you can't use it as a defensive measure. It's meant to be an aggressive, all-out creature.
Sure. You can't just play it, keep it around for a turn, block. Great observation, as ever, from Simon Goertzen here, the Pro Tour champion.
Just sprinkling some
Just
Hagelslag on top.
Yeah,
of
sprinkling
top of this.
your knowledge Hagelslag on my nonsense toast here. I tell you what, if there's one thing the Dutch know how to do, apart from grow poppies and dominate 16th century world trading routes, it is having breakfast. Have a look at this now. Welding sparks to get rid of that gear shift ace. Voss is not interested in having it around. And he is a spontaneous artist as well, so this is a big attack.
Yeah, the first record being too strong here, and Brent Voss's time is running up. He needs to sustain that Hellion, and yeah, if the game goes too long, he knows also that the blue-white deck with the Fumigate, with the extra cards, and all the value you can think of will just take over.
And here we see very clearly De Rosa putting his agenda out for all to see. He wants to block early, and he wants to block often. Hellion sticks around here. The rather useless die on top of Brent Voss's deck goes away as well. Interesting to see that's how he signposted the reminder. Bracata Pillarbug. Again, we're seeing it. We did see a swamp in Damad Roa's deck. That may be just for the Pillarbug.
Or a Prophetic Prism could also do the job. It's the last turn to keep the Hellion alive, so this draw step is very, very important.
Yeah, his board goes from decent to decidedly unimpressive after the Hellion departs.
And PV has a double block on the Spontaneous Artist as well. And that goes back to what you mentioned, the fact that high toughness creatures really make it difficult to go through. Something that Shenhar, I believe, is witnessing.
Yeah, really using to the full effect there on the bottom table. But right now, PV, Brent Voss, considering their next moves.
PV is sandbagging an acrobatic maneuver, so even if Bast top decks something here, a removal spell, it might not end up the way he wants it to. And PV is not even forced to cast it. He could just as well just make a 1/1 and chump block with it, because why would you risk a double block on a creature that's or a triple block on a creature that's dying anyway?
So it looks like it's going to be the other. It looks like it's going to be the Ether Theorist here, which is going to scry, and I think we're going to see acrobatic maneuver. Yes, indeed. So rather than Bracata Pillarbug, which has no relevant into the battlefield ability, it's Ether Theorist instead, which certainly does. So drawing a card and then scrying.
Yeah, and in particular, keeping a Cloud Blazer on top.
Oh, look at that. Cloud Blazer on the top here, and that leaves almost enough mana here for the Disappearing Act to be cast. We see De Rosa tap his mana in a fashion that means that he's going to be able to cast it if he draws a land. It's a tricky thing to do here, but he is going to leave up with the 2 islands. Smart play. Draws 2 cards, another Cloud Blazer, and there's the triple islands that mean the Disappearing Act can stay up. But he has signposted that, and Brent Voss will be cognizant of it.
But even being cognizant of it, you're facing a Cloud Blazer, another Cloud Blazer, and a counter spell that will return a Cloud Blazer. Even if I show you my hand,
yeah,
I don't feel particularly scared.
So Brent Voss here, you can see he is really hitting the tank here, bumping up against it like a goldfish with visual difficulties. But it's just going to be an all-out attack here, getting very aggressive. Spontaneous Artist coming across.
Interesting decision which creature you want to keep against on this battlefield. Oh, actually, PV valuing the scry more than anything else.
Very highly indeed. Well, he knows the second Cloud Blazer can come down, and obviously the Disappearing Act maybe make it come down again. So maybe he doesn't mind trading it off. And if you're Brent Voss here, I mean, what's your next move?
I think you don't do anything. You can't really afford to do so. Maybe This is at least interesting because now, if PV counters, his Cloud Blazer is not something he wants to return to his hand, because then the combat would still not work out in his favor.
As it is, the artist is able to take down the double block, and that's a nice little 2-for-1 there for Brent Voss.
There was an argument to be made for a triple block, but ultimately, PV can just play very conservatively. Next turn, maybe also keep up a blue-blue-white so that he has more options available. Activating the puzzle at the end of turn, for example. Brent Voss has no energy, so as long as he just draws normal, regular Magic cards, they will not be hasting in with the help of Spontaneous Artist. Which has, by the way, grown a bit in my appreciation.
Yeah, I think we've really seen the artist do some work throughout this week, and the fact that it can power out any other creatures with haste makes it pretty crucial here. And we're going to see another shrewd negotiation go on. Brent Voss gains the puzzle knot, while Damad Roa gains the Spontaneous Artist, the 4-4 here.
PV even has the energy to fuel it.
Lawless Broker comes in for 3, but DeRosa, I think, can now smell the change in the air.
He can paint some pretty nice pictures now.
And Fumigate off the top as well. So Paula Vito Damad Roa, you would have to say, firmly in control of this match, as Brent Voss's cards just aren't lining up against the Cloud Blazers and mass removal spells that make the white-blue deck so powerful in very, very rare corner cases.
This is a deck that's built to just lock up the game at a certain point, and this shrewd negotiation with counter backup, the second Cloud Blazer, the writing is on the wall, despite the life total discrepancy.
And Voss now may not have recognized it just yet. With the Torch Renegade in his hand along with a mountain. But I think Damad Roa really odds-on favourite to get across the line here. We'll see if Voss can conjure up something special. Doesn't even play the other Torch Renegade.
His Lawless Broker doesn't have good blocks.
No.
So his board is basically non-existent. He could attack with it, to be honest. I think I like that more than just being passive and not doing anything.
The Torch Renegade is going to come down here. So Brent Voss gains some energy. 4 of it to be precise. And we're going to see Damad Roa's scry now, and it immediately goes below decks. Yeah, and Rosa with a very clear idea of how he wants this game to go.
PV, of course, valuing the scry higher than the potential haste activations on creatures. It's not his game plan to race Brent in this position. Still no further results on Shenhar Melis.
These finals, of course, untimed. Players expected to play at a reasonable pace, but apart from that, can take their time in making their decisions. So often we see the game stretch out a little bit, although the quality of the Magic obviously improves. DeRosa holding a Visionary Augmenter here. And is that what we're going to see? Yes, indeed. The 2-1 Fabricate 2 is going to enter the battlefield and bring along some little friends as well. And DeRosa's going to get in here. Look at that, using the energy from the Spontaneous Artist activation now. And in comes the 2-1. And once again, Brent Voss can line up blocks that don't really work out in his favor, Zimon.
Exactly, and Brent at the same time doesn't want to lose his either Torch Renegade, because it's the one creature that actually has something to do now on this battlefield. Maybe
that's the reason for DeRosa's attack with the Visionary Augmenter here. He knows that it's going to be gunned down by the Renegade.
It wasn't really possible to make a great decision here, because a 4/3 Augmenter would have traded with the Lookout, and a 2/1 Augmenter will die to the ping effect, but then at least you still have the 2 Thopters.
So DeRosa getting in now, knocking his opponent down to 9, which mirrors DeRosa's life total. And we see now very strident behavior from DeRosa as he prepares to block. Disappearing Act is going to mean that he's got a bit of a safety valve against any play that Voss might want to make here.
I like the triple block. You know that you're not losing to the onboard trick, and if all your opponent has is an either Torch Renegade, there's absolutely nothing to worry about.
Rush of Vitality now to try to keep that broker around. If he gains some life as well. But DeRosa does have the answer to it should he choose to deploy it. We're going to see DeRosa scry to begin. It's a Plains.
I honestly don't see a reason to interrupt here. Sure, it's something you could do, but it's also not something you have to do.
I just let it happen.
As long as I'm winning the game by such a large margin, I'm not gonna use up my counter magic.
Looks like DeRosa's also sitting on a malfunction. Did I see that one right, Zimon?
Yes, I believe he just drew it.
So DeRosa has answers for days here. And the the Fumigate, really, the absolute final word in clearing the board.
Yeah, the Fumigate probably the guarantee that you're not even losing to a Demon of Dark Schemes in that spot. And I believe that PV just decided that his hand is so good that he will not lose to
What has happened
anything
here?
At this point.
What has happened here, ladies and gentlemen? A Disappearing Act has been cast, and a Cloud Blazer wasn't returned to the hand. Instead, it was the Visionary Augmenter, Zimon Gertz, and I'm at a loss for words, in a figurative sense.
That's
never going to be a literal sense.
Very unfortunate, but maybe Paulo Vitor evaluating the card draw as a danger to his victory here.
Well, it's going to be. Here we are. Once again, the Visionary Augmenter. I can't say I approve of this, but no, it's malfunction this time. On the other Torch Renegade.
No, PV is simply aiming to win this game right now, right here. 4 power. No, not a 4 power creature.
No.
Oh, just spending all
Give
the
them all
energy.
haste and slam them in. And is that enough for Voss to extend the hand? It is indeed. He's a much better player than me, my friends, but that doesn't come as a surprise to anyone. The Hall of Famer, Paula Vida Damad Roa, taking the game out of Brent Voss's hands, and I have to be honest, his opponent really never looked in it.
No. Great game.
Really, really good game here. Solid stuff from the Brazilian Hall of Famer, and that gives his team a breath of hope here. We did see him needing to win as we went into game number 3 here between DeRosa and Voss, and he managed to pull the victory out of the air. So congratulations to him and commiserations to Brent Voss, whose eyes will now turn to Baz Melis. Shenhar is facing off against Baz Melis, and already Melis with the 1-0 lead here. And we'll switch over to their table to see how things are panning out in game number 2. A lot of stuff going on here. You can see a Renegade Freighter, a Quicksmith Genius, in addition to the Speedway Fanatic. Looks like Baz Melis in a much more defensive position.
Similar to the short window we got into game 1. I like Shenhar's board. A lot of cards that are really good if you can support them. And just the high power parade on Baz Melis' side.
We saw Melis lining up 3 Highspire Artisans last game. I can see one of them already in the Binsky. But I do want to see what Melis's deck finishes with. That's what I really want to know, how he closed out the last game.
We unfortunately didn't see how that happened, and I don't think it's only like a single creature and then beating down for a while, because Shenhar can also just take a 2-for-1 on defense and be fine with it. There has to be something if you rely so heavily on defensive creatures.
So just a quick reminder here that this is in fact a replay. The semi-finals have almost certainly wrapped up by now, although Zimon and I aren't party to this, tucked away in our little booth here.
But I did see PV running around. So
oh, you did see him running around. Obviously. Could you tell anything of his mood from the way he was running around? Was he running around in a jovial fashion, perhaps?
No.
Was it despondent, the way he was running around?
Neither one or the other.
Neither jovial nor despondent. Well, despondent, more info as it comes to hand, but I will tell you this, the team draft for the final is almost certainly underway, and we'll be bringing you coverage of that, of course. The rather lengthy build process is something we're going to skip over, given the fact that we've got all these replays on hand. So it's just going to be all magic, all day, every day here from GP Rotterdam, and your company, once again, ladies and gentlemen, is greatly appreciated by me, Riley Knight, alongside Zimon Gertz, and he also appreciates, it's probably to a lesser extent, but that just says something about the way that he generally conducts himself.
Thank you, Riley. We're a great team.
Absolutely, indeed. The rest of the coverage team also very pleased to bring you live streaming coverage of GP Rotterdam here. And of course, the party don't stop till cops kick the door in next week. Live, coming at you, Cleopatra, from the great city of Rotterdam. It will be the World Magic Cup. Zeemon, you'll be making an appearance in the commentary booth, so people can get up and about that at least.
This weekend is the teaser for the World Magic Cup. We've seen a lot of captains, a lot of teams in attendance here. Of course, only 3-person teams this weekend, 4-person national teams next weekend. And it's going to be a great show with the same format we saw here all weekend long, but also Team Unified Modern.
Yeah, really, really fascinating format. Something, as a huge fan of Modern myself, something I'm really, really excited to see how it goes. A lot of overlap. Of course, you can see the masterful set of articles written by Frank Casten online about the implications of the format. And Zeemon, I'm sure you've gathered your own thoughts about the way the format should be navigated. Right now, not a lot happening on our game here. I think a lot of discussion surrounding this one. This game's so high stakes here.
Super high stakes, and it's basically a 3-on-3.
Yeah.
Now these players are supposed to play at a reasonable speed, pace, but the discussions take time.
Absolutely. All of them recognizing the fact that they are in a giant butcher shop. The stakes are just so high above the ground here.
But Buzz carefully blocking with all of his creatures.
Yeah, very careful thing here. And it's Sahili Ray. This is a card here, a Planeswalker. Obviously can't doubt the pure power of a Planeswalker, but not the marquee card that you'd expect it to be in Limited. Still a good role player.
Actually, one of the weaker Planeswalkers in Limited. And I know that because I played her once and immediately lost the game. So, no, she's great, but you really have to have the board and the deck for her.
That's true. You really need ways to abuse, especially the -2 power. In Constructed, obviously, Sahili Ray is just begging to be broken. Obviously, so many degenerate things you can do with a Planeswalker of this caliber.
Especially in Eternal formats.
Yeah, that's true. So many artifacts to copy and so much stuff to dig through in decks, especially in these colors, especially in the older formats. But in Limited, of course, just a niche role player and still a highly defensible card. Baz Melis facing down the problem posed by the Planeswalker now. And we'll see what his response is. There is going to be an attack from the Pricata Club security.
Which, does not kill her.
No, that's right. The security says, sorry tonight. It's a private event, not in those shoes. I don't know why you turned up to the club in Tracky Dax. We're going to have to take you outside. And Baz Melis now bolstering his energy count with this attune with the Ether.
Actually, a very interesting spot. You're facing a potential backlash with Speedrunner Fanatic, potentially crewing any vehicle, Sahili Rai creating copies. There's a lot of things that can happen.
Yeah, so keeping that Sahili Rai under tight control here with the Pricata Club security.
And of course, Sahili's +1 not only allows you to scry, but also deals 1 to your opponent.
And that's more relevant than you'd think, especially at this later stage in the game.
We're seeing more of these kind of effects, where you get the primary effect and something tacked on, which makes it more difficult to play against. Because, for example, you activate Chandra, when your opponent doesn't get a card, they get to deal 2 damage to you. So if you're on a low life total, there are more things to worry about.
Yeah, every card's just a free shock. Nimble Innovator now. And Melis, with what looks like a tidy conclusion. That's right. Gains a life as well. And it's back to the Dutchman.
Does he attack Sahili again is my question.
Well, we'll see what the bouncer thinks of Sahili Ray here. She may not be admitted entry. And what does Shenhar have to say? Is the Innovator going to bite the bullet here, or could we see a double block? Looks like we do have a double block, so those creatures throwing themselves in the way of the Planeswalker here.
That's the dream scenario for the combo tricks we've been talking about all weekend, but maybe Baz has a large green creature to follow it up with.
Yeah, he does indeed. Here we have the Edge Crafters here. So Sahili Ray gets past the club security, and she's going to have a good night out on the Terps, but the Edge Crafters are going to come back and have something to say about it. Maybe a bit of a hangover for her in the morning here.
You saw Andre Straski trying to steal it from the battlefield, but of course he was caught.
Yes, often these sorts of potential edge case plays can sometimes come in, but Straski very quickly. I mean, if you can pick up your opponent's card and run away with it, sometimes you will get away with it, but not in this case.
GT face. No, that's actually a huge threat to Shenhar now. 5 power and so difficult to block. This card has been relevant whenever we saw it.
Yeah, the rider on it that creatures with power 2 or less can't block it has actually been a defining piece of this card, just in terms of ensuring it's always live. It's always doing something. You know, you can't just chuck servos away in front of it. You've got to throw a real creature in its path.
And my issue with Saheeli in Limited is the -2 is only a temporary effect. So you have to be somewhat ahead to really profit from it. You have to get some triggers. You have to get some prophetic prisms to generate card advantage with it.
So let's see what Saheeli Ray has done in this stage. We've had 3 activations of her first ability. So that's 3 damage, 3 individual scry 1s, and she's also soaked up 2 attacks from the club security. So that's 6 life.
No, she's soaked up one attack.
Oh, sorry, she has soaked up 1 attack, but also another attack was aimed at her rather than the face.
But now, for example, I think it's absolutely crucial. This decision is absolutely crucial. Who do you attack? Do you attack Shenhar because it threatens lethal at sooner rather than later, or do you attack Saheeli because you're scared of the -2 on a 4/4 that's really, really awkward to block?
And that's the thing here with Shenhar being able to play a card, make a copy of it, and get in there straight away, especially if it's a card with a relevant enters the battlefield type effect. I mean, even something like an experimental aviator, which can't attack as a 0/3, but still just flooding the board with servo tokens.
You would actually lose to a Snare Thopter if Shenhar had it.
Oh, that's a great point. Jeez, I didn't even
No,
think
that's
about
not
that.
true. There's the Skygate, but there are enough examples of how you can suddenly lose the game.
Even something like a Wayward Giant would be a big problem here. Oval Chase Daredevil now coming down for Baz Melis.
Really good answer to any number of self-assemblers.
5 mana. Are we going to see the self-assembler come back down again?
Baz has to be favored here, right? We know there's we know there's a self-assembler coming, but how do you block next turn? And if Baz doesn't want to trade his 5/6, is he even going to attack with it? Salivating Gremlins and the Dalton Blade Master. Not the strongest 2/3s around, but respectable.
Both of them have relevant abilities that can boost their power, of course. The Blade Master having prowess, but let's not forget about the Salivating Gremlins getting +2/+0 and trample when an artifact enters the battlefield. Shenhar does indeed have an artifact in hand, you would think, after playing a self-assembler.
Yeah, and
did we see him shuffle?
Yeah, we saw that. And we also now know that he didn't want to cast the second self-assembler because he wanted to have more blockers available. And you can see that if Baz attacks with his 2 non-defenders, there is a really nice block available to Shenhar. And that is, of course, a 2/3 on the 4/2, rather than trading it with a 4/4.
Yeah.
And then the other creatures have exactly enough power to take down 4+2 power would still take down the
would, but unfortunately the Blade Master isn't able to block the Edgecraft.
That's
here.
true.
So it looks like a good block lined up on paper, but I think the Edgecrafter here is just able to ensure that it doesn't get taken down by these weeny little creatures.
And Shenhar does not have mana, so prowess is not an option.
So Melis here.
Could this... no attacks? Wow. That's surprising.
Without an attack passes the turn. 1 card in hand, 7 mana available. You'd want to start putting those nails into the coffin. Just grab the hammer and start slapping it into the wood. But it's going to be self-assembler number 2, which powers up the gremlins, only for this turn. It's important to note. And Melis.
This is a lot more defensive than I envisioned it to be.
And another land and another shipping of the turn here. Things made more difficult by the second self-assembler coming down.
But does Shenhar have attacks here? Like, if you're honest?
If I'm honest, Simon, I've got no idea.
Self-assembler gets blocked by the Daredevil, which potentially comes back. Your other self-assembler dies
to the
to a
Edgecrafters.
5/6. And then at least the prowess creature I would be happy to block with the Skygate. So you're dealing 2 damage for, and you're not getting a lot out of it.
Both players here staring at the other, in a figurative sense at least. Who'll be the first to blink? See what Shenhar can find here.
Shenhar and his team are doing similar math
Yeah.
to what we are trying to do here, which is you have to consider the blocks depending on what you would do, and of course the attacks that would follow. If you attack with everything, there is a certain price to that, of course.
So obviously some pretty convoluted discussions going on here between Shenhar and his teammates. Melis, also I can see the shadows on the screen indicating some gesticulating and some chatting, but it is just shipping the turn back to Melis now, who's going to draw a card.
And none of these players want to make the wrong step, take the wrong step.
Looks like Melis may have drawn something he can cast, and it's going to cost him 5 mana. It's a Riparian Tiger.
It's not a bad start.
No, very, very good card here, of course. Is it going to be enough to break through for Shenhar?
Well, first of all, now Shenhar's attacks were dubious already. Now it would need some amount of artifacts or something big happening to allow Shenhar to attack this turn.
So Fiddly farting around with his mana once again, Shenhar, and he finds now it is an artifact. So that Salivating Gremlins is now a +2 and trample added to its 2/3 body, 4/3 trample. Both players scrying to the bottom. I think they both know what they're looking for here.
Bas Melis benefiting from the scry first, effectively.
Mm-hmm.
Can't make out the card.
I think that was a Welding Sparks. No,
No, it's target creature can't block this turn.
Oh, it's a Falter effect. Here we go. Yes, indeed.
Is this lethal? 3 blockers and 4 creatures with 4/4/4 and 3 power. Does Sir Shahar have something else? Because he wouldn't waste his target creature can't block effect if he didn't want to attack this turn.
No.
Renegade Tactics.
Renegade Tactics, the card played here as a 1 mana Falter, draw a card. Not a card we've seen a lot of in recent times here, but how is it going to serve Shenhar? I don't think he would have pulled the trigger too early here. But obviously have a plan for how this is going to go. You're not just going to cycle a potentially high impact card like this on a stalled out board.
No, you cycle it on turn 1 or 2 if you're looking for land drops or if you're getting beaten down relentlessly. But
so Shenhar now maneuvering his cards around, and we may see some attacks laid out.
this is
Okay.
This was so exciting, and that's it.
That's it. That's all she wrote today. With this attack, the Salivating Gremlins is a 4/3 trample.
But I like it because if you block with the Daredevils, there's this trample to consider, and that makes you kind of want to block with at least the Daredevils and the Skygate.
Well, that's the obvious block, isn't it? Just with the Daredevil there, because it's a nice recursive threat here. But as you say, that would mean that 2 points still come across to Melis, leaving him very susceptible to any reach that Shenhar might have, or just any further plays that push through damage.
I don't think you can afford to take damage here.
No.
And then the Skygate is just the weakest card. Shenhar doesn't have a single flyer on the battlefield. Could there be a reason to chump block just with the Skygate? No,
I think you want it off the board. I
that's-
think you want
yeah,
this,
that's
Gremlins,
not-
especially with a card like the Daredevil. And we're going to see this block that Zimon, you mentioned there. They got there in the end.
It's as you said, it's the most obvious block, and the main thing you have to realize is that blocking only with the Daredevil is giving you the trait that you want, but it would mean trample damage.
So now, Melis, back to him, the Dutchman. Draws a card. What can he find? Is he going to find a way to close out this game with his opponent on 8?
I can tell you what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping for him to find hazardous conditions to give all creatures with no counters on them -2/-2, and then somehow conjure a victory with his light crafters. I don't think that's going to happen, but it would make for interesting combat math.
The Edgecrafters would be the only card unaffected by hazardous conditions here. Looks like it was just a land, though. Oh, no. Here we are. Oh, it's Wildest Dreams. Here we go. We've got a game in our hands. Look at this. Wildest Dreams. Green XX. Return X target cards from your graveyard to your hand and exile Wildest Dreams. So Baz Melis gets to draw a bunch of cards here. 2, 4, 6, 8, 11... Sorry, 9 mana spent here on the card. So 4 cards coming back. How about that, Simon Gertzen?
Well, it's the one of the best cards to draw in that kind of board state. It also means Shenhar knows he has to go for it next turn because otherwise the value will just be overwhelming. Yeah,
this is just insane here because Shahar Shenhar knows that these cards are coming. He's got one turn to respond to them, but this is not a pretty time for him. He can see this huge wave coming across to overwhelm him, and as we see these 4 cards selected, looks like Tidy Conclusion there, Long Tusk Cub. Is that an Appetite for the Unnatural hiding out at the bottom?
Correct.
And a vehicle amongst them? Oh, it's the Bastion Mastodon.
Because it will also get back the Daredevil. You could have only taken 3 cards there.
And then
still cast the Cub.
The Cub.
I'm sure they discussed it, but
there we have it. On the back of a Wild Dreams, Baz Melis propels his team to glory into the finals. And we saw here a masterpiece also hiding out in the deck of the Dutchman. Handshakes all around, and congratulations to the Frank Casten-led team of Brent Voss, Baz Melis as well to them. They've made their way to the final, which will be coming your way before very much longer. Right now, however, it is time for the final draft. Stick around. More action coming your way from GP Rotterdam.